You're listening to the Pigskin Cafe, a podcast covering the wild world of college football. On tap for today are hot takes, controversy, and analysis on your favorite team. Here's your host, Hampton Sipper, in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back into the Pigskin Cafe. My name is Hampton Sipper, and I am joined by Mr. Chase Haney and Mr. Graham Haney here tonight to preview Conference Championship weekend. What an exciting weekend we have on tap. Guys, before we kind of dive in, and we're going to talk about Oregon, Washington on Friday, Texas versus Oklahoma State, Louisville versus Florida State, Michigan versus Iowa, and of course, the granddaddy of them all, and no, it's not the Rose Bowl, but the biggest game of the weekend, Alabama versus Georgia. But before we dive in, quick programming reminder, if you haven't already, subscribe to us on YouTube, leave us a like, leave us a comment on this video, and hit that notification bell. Also follow us on social media where we love interacting with you guys and kind of getting the pulse of the college football landscape. And speaking of getting the pulse of the landscape, before we dive in and preview these games, Chase, Graham and I talked about it on our recap show from Rivalry Weekend, but Texas A&M made a big move. We haven't talked on this pod since Texas A&M fired Jimbo Fisher. Now they have hired Mike Elko after hiring Mark Stoops, and there was a big, huge backlash that I think kind of led to the powers that be kind of changing their mind a little bit. Quick reaction, quick pulse of the nation from you on the Mike Elko hire, and then we'll preview the games that are coming up this weekend.
Yeah, like you said, hey, big news here in Aggie land, and I'm going to probably fall in the camp and say that the Mark Stoops hire was more of a feeler that they threw out to see how is our fan base going to react to this hire. And I'm going to go as far to say that I think they threw out Mark Stoops' name to make this single of a hire with Mike Elko. I don't feel like he's a home run. I think for them he's safe. But in comparison, I think that it felt a lot better than Mark Stoops. Now, willing to be wrong, I think that one of the reactions that I heard was that Jimbo was not a great CEO. He wasn't very organized. This wasn't one of his strengths. And so as he brought in coaches, he always had to bring in someone who was a really good CEO. And I think that that's the reason they went with Elko, is because when he was previously here, he probably took more of that role and had more of the strengths that they were looking for. So I think probably fit-wise, probably a really good hire. I was joking yesterday and said that, Texas A&M 7-5. So what did they do when they fired their coach and paid him $80 million to get out of here? They went and hired another coach that's 7-5 with the exact same excuse built in, which is his quarterback got hurt. So enough throwing shade. I think this is a good hire, but I want to just leave you with this. Go look at Texas A&M football on Instagram. You'll see an announcement that they hired Mike Elko, and then tell me how long you have to scroll to even find a picture of Jimbo. Because let me tell you guys, I was looking for a few minutes today at work, and I couldn't find him. Because I was like,
Did they
how
scrub
often?
him?
I don't know if they scrubbed him or if they never really posted pictures of him or made sure that he was always the second or third, so he wasn't always the face. But either way, either they scrubbed him or you could feel this was coming if you were to maybe take a step back and look at their Instagram. So, Hampton, what's maybe just your 2 cents?
All I was going to add, if you want to see the most cringy video that you're going to see this week, maybe this year, go watch a 10 to 15 second clip from the press conference today with him and his family, everybody swinging right there in the church choir. Awkward as all get out with the little, shooting the guns up, cheerleader. Hey, it's different down there, man. We just wouldn't understand, but full of cringe and full of a good laugh if you want to have that today on your Thursday.
Yeah, dude. Hey, well, we'll see. I mean, A&M's in a place where they can't keep missing, but they have the oil money to continue to keep missing if they need to. So, really last program note on this. Evan Stewart did repost the Alabama catch from the Auburn game, which I am insanely intrigued by. So, hey, well, let's move on to some teams who are still in the hunt, who are still fighting it out. And as a lot of people have said, and you guys have heard this, that there needs to be some chaos. And not only does there need to be, it's about time for there to be chaos. And then the truth of the matter is, a lot of these other teams need for there to be chaos. They need a little bit of help. Not that they don't get in or do get in, but it would turn a 50-50 situation into something more favorable to their situation. So, hey, let's start with the Pac-12, the conference actually that everyone said was significantly improved this year. And so we've got a rematch of Oregon versus Washington. And fellas, let me ask you this to start. Just we'll do this for each conference, and some of it will apply more to others. Let's start with, does the winner of this game, just the winner, blatant winner of this game, get into the college playoff? And then with that, then I want you to kind of tell me what you think actually happens during that game. So, Hampton, I'm going to start with you first. Does the winner of the Pac-12 championship get into the college football playoff? And then walk me through how you feel like that game is going to work.
I think it's a case-by-case basis. I think if Washington wins, they're absolutely in. I think if Oregon wins and there's an FSU loss or a Texas loss, I think they're 100% in. I think it gets a little tricky if it comes down to Alabama versus Oregon and Alabama has beaten Georgia, because if you compare resumes, it's not even close. Right now, Oregon's best win, I think, is either beating Oregon State or going on the road to Utah. 8-4, and both teams are 8-4. That just is not inspiring. And then your best win is going to be against the Washington team that you already beat or that you already lost to this year. So to me, that kind of like cancels that out. So I think it's a case-by-case basis on the winner of this game getting into the playoff. Now, for the game itself, I thought the first matchup was one of the best games of the year. I mean, it had everything you wanted, had great quarterback play, came down to a last-second field goal miss by Oregon for Washington to hold on, which seems to be a theme for Washington as of late, holding on for dear life to win a game. Like they almost lost to Wazoo, and they almost lost to Arizona State. They've almost lost to Stanford. You're sensing a pattern. Oregon, on the other hand, since that Washington game, has been dominant. Now, granted, the level of competition has not been fantastic, but Oregon has taken care of business. I think if when Graham and I talked about that first game, I think I said, if they play 10 times, it'd be 5-5, because I think they're very even teams. Well, as the season is going on, I think it's become clear Oregon is a much more complete team on both sides of the ball. I think their defense is better. I really like how Bo Nix is playing right now. I think he's playing better than Michael Penix, because Penix has been a little up and down here recently. I mean, he, again, holding on for dear life. He almost gave the game away to Wazoo on that final drive, about threw 2 picks in crunch time. He can be a little inaccurate at times, and I believe Oregon is going to exact revenge on Washington, and it's maybe a little bit bold. I think there's a chance they win by double digits. I think as the season's going on, they have really distanced themselves from Washington and have kept improving, where I think Washington kind of peaked with that win against Oregon, and I don't think they've been quite the same team since. So give me Oregon to win this game, and unfortunately for Jaden Daniels, who I believe has been the best player in the country this year, and I don't think it's close, this game is going to cement Bo Nix in New York to win the Heisman.
I like it. That's a bold prediction. Way to not play it safe.
Try it, baby.
Yeah. Graham, I guess same question. I know there's some context here, but I'm really trying to press into just the chaos that must unfold and the chaos that is going to happen. But then there's also just going to be a committee left with the decision of how much does winning a conference championship matter? And then you get into what conference championship did they win? So basically it comes down to, does winning the Pac-12 championship warrant both teams will have one loss at that point, but would that warrant a place in the championship or in the playoff, rather?
Yeah, so I mean, I agree with Hampton that it is a case by case basis in the sense of you're going to have 5 conference champions all in that top 5, 6 number. And so there's going to be somebody that gets left out, pending that there's not upsets that happen and chaos that ensues. Hopefully it does for everybody's sake, because that would make it a lot more fun. Just for the enjoyment of watching the games, to really just think you have it all numbered out, and then it's a complete disaster. Chaos ensues, and then the playoff committee gets even more heat than they've already received. This Oregon and Washington matchup, Hampton, I think you're spot on. I think when you're looking into it, Washington has played their best football already. They're not peaking at the right time. You look at what Oregon has done. Oregon is slowly getting better. I mean, Hampton, like we said, we had that discussion where Oregon and Washington, that was a back and forth coin flip of a game almost, and Oregon definitely could have won equal amounts of that game if it was played any other day but that day. I think that as of right now, Oregon's playing their best football. I mean, they're slowly and steadily getting better on offense, getting better on defense. I think that to me, Oregon looks like the better team going into this matchup in the sense of their quarterback, Bo Nix, is extremely efficient right now. Michael Penix has not been efficient as of late. He still has the big arm. He's still got the big plays, but he has been more reckless with the ball in his hands and has turned the ball over more. And I honestly, if you watch any of that Washington State game, he threw to those Washington State cornerbacks too many times. I mean, there were so many opportunities for them to intercept balls that they dropped, especially late in the fourth quarter. I think for this one, Hampton, I'm kind of like you. I think Oregon wins, and I think it might be by 2 scores. I mean, I hate to just pat you on the back, but I think it was just spot on by what we've seen.
No, it just kills you.
By what we've seen, I think that Oregon just will be more physical this time, and I think that Oregon has the sense of it has to be us, and I think Washington is going into the mindset with, oh, why not us? And I think that the difference there is, you look at Oregon. I think Oregon's really hungry. To me, it's so tough. I'm sure we'll talk about the Florida State and Louisville game later, but to me, the ACC championship game is the one that I want to throw out the easiest. I just want to throw it out and make it not part of the conversation anymore, just for so many circumstances. However, I just don't think you can I just don't think you can leave out an undefeated conference champion. You can't leave out an undefeated conference champion and choose a one-loss team with Oregon, who does not have the best resume, but probably passes the eye test better than any other person in college football.
Yeah, German, I think you landed that plane on the right. I think question that we're supposed to ask is, has Oregon done everything right if they win this game? And like you guys said, maybe even by double digits, have they done exactly what they're supposed to do in order to pass the eye test, win the Pac-12, and to get in? Because there's not much more that they're going to be able to do other than they lost to a good team who was even better at the time, who seems to have plateaued, and then Oregon has done nothing but turned up the volume. And I think that Alabama's done quite the same thing of just, hey, when they lost, they're not the same team as they were then. And so, yeah, go ahead, Hampton. Get your last word in.
One last thing, and this can kind of segue to our next game. One of Oregon's signature wins was beating Texas Tech by 8. Texas just beat that team by 50.
Yeah.
It's another thing to consider when you're looking at resume and body of work. So I just want to throw that in. And now we're about to talk about Texas and Oklahoma State.
Dude, and you're so right. I think that the pulse of a Texas A&M is they're going to ruin someone's season, and they're also going to get blown out by a team that they should definitely beat. They're the type of team that if you get up by 2 scores on them, they're going to roll over and quit like they did against Texas. If you let them hang in there, they might ruin your season, And so, Texas does take care of business, puts down Texas Tech. But they're playing Oklahoma State. I don't know if you guys kept up with just how this unfolded here in the Big 12, but that this is one of the first years that those teams have not played each other in the regular season due to the Big 12 being as big and as expanded as it's been. There was just not everybody could play each other. And so that leaves this really interesting matchup of another team that has really turned around its season facing off against a team that might have already plateaued. And more credit to Texas. I think they've played good ball, not always the best at times, but Oklahoma State went from losing to South Alabama at home to being in this game. So let me just get your quick reaction. I don't think we have to spend too much time on this. Kickoff's at 11 o'clock, which is just kind of dirty to always do to the Big 12, but here we are. So who do you guys got in that game? Maybe just give me 2 sentences on how you see it unfolding. I'll start with you, Graham.
Yeah, I'll take it. To me, Oklahoma State's just a jack in the box. I mean, you twist it, and it doesn't scare you. You twist it, it doesn't scare you. And then all of a sudden, you twist it one more time, and it just pops out, and it's right in front of your face. I think that's the way they played all
The
year.
mullet pops out, baby.
Yeah, they twist and they play awful against South Alabama. They twist again and they go beat Oklahoma. You twist again and get blown out by UCF in the rain. I mean, to me, you don't really know what you're going to get from Oklahoma State, and that's why it's so just concerning for me. They're going to have to ride the back of Ollie Gordon, and he's going to have to have at least 200 yards in order for Oklahoma State to stand a chance. But I think Texas wins. I think the Texas, again, they're on a mission, they're like Oregon. They're on a mission, and it's hard to deny that, especially this time of year. But hey, then again, like I said, Oklahoma State, that jack in the box. You don't know what Mike Gundy's going to pop out, and if he does, you better watch out because it could be nasty. But I think Texas wins.
Hampton, what you got?
Yeah, I'm with you, Graham. They're very Jekyll and Hyde. They've been very up and down. They were riding high and then, again, lose to UCF in embarrassing fashion. And I just don't think this is a good matchup for them. I don't think – obviously they're not nearly as talented, but the strength that their team has run the football with Ollie Gordon, as you mentioned, he has been an absolute beast this year. But I think the strength of that Texas defense is their front seven.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they're going to be able to limit him, going to put the game on Alan Bowman, who played really well against Oklahoma, but I don't believe he's played well as of late. I'm hoping and praying that Mullet Mike can give me, I'm a man, I'm 40 type speech, get the boys fired up, go into Dallas and win the game. Just don't see that happening. I've got Texas winning this one, riding into the playoff, even though very much like Washington, before this Texas Tech game, barely squeaking by. But in the end, I think it's going to be enough to get them in. But, man, I hope Magic Mike can pull it off one last time. And pull it off was probably not the best choice of words there, but we're going to just keep going.
For the Big 12. Tell them, Hampton, for the Big 12.
For the Big 12.
Dude, I think this whole matchup comes down to, the question is, has Sarkisian brought Texas all the way back, or is there still a little bit of that DNA that trips up in big moments like this? And here's where it favors Texas, is that Oklahoma State is a great number 2. They're just a great number 2. They've been to this game. I don't know if you guys remember when they played Baylor a few years back. And it was
goal line stand, baby.
Goal line
incredible.
Stand. We're making a run to the pylon, and all of a sudden you're looking to see if it falls over, and the pylon doesn't fall over, and they didn't score a touchdown. And so, I just think that they're one of those teams that, they're a really good team. They're a great team some seasons, but they're never that team. They're always a great number 2. So I think I'm with you guys. I think I'm going Texas. But I've never met an Oklahoma State fan or someone who's ever attended there until I started working at the church that I work at now. And I think I know at least 2 of them, and there's probably another 8 that go to our church. It's kind of strange. So anyways, I'd love to see them poke them this weekend. So let's keep moving. This game doesn't take much. I think FSU versus Louisville. Louisville did not do themselves any favors losing to Kentucky this past weekend. Really stinks. And so, let me just simply ask, do they come out of that loss ready to right the ship, or is the house on fire? Hampton, I'll start with you.
I think they come out and right the ship. They lost to Pitt earlier this year after a huge win versus Notre Dame. They lose to Kentucky, I think, looking ahead a little bit to this game. They know the opportunity that presents itself. FSU did not look good against Florida. They probably should have lost that game if Billy Napier could get his boys to play disciplined, which I know is asking a lot. It's like asking, it to snow in the South at times. But I think that FSU on offense is anemic right now with Rodemaker at quarterback. I think Louisville, Jeff Brom is going to have something dialed up for that FSU defense. I think there's some matchups that they can take advantage of, and I think they win this game. I'm manifesting it because Alabama needs it if they beat Georgia, but I do genuinely think this is where FSU's run ends. It needs to end because it's going to be a mercy killing. Because if they get in the playoff, it'd be as bad as TCU versus Georgia, whoever they played. So give me Louisville in this game.
Yeah, Graham, same question to you. Do they right the ship, or is the house on fire?
I think they right the ship, but I think when you look at dudes on both sides of the ball, I still think Florida State has them outmatched. I think with a backup quarterback, I still think Florida State has enough weapons to hold over and keep control of the ACC. I would love more than anything for Louisville to win this game because it makes the picture a lot clearer. But Hampton, I'm not trying to get a clear picture. I'm trying to get that shattered glass. I'm trying to make it chaotic. I think Florida State is going to take it home. I think that Norvell. I think that Florida State also might have been looking forward to this ACC championship game, knowing that the Florida game did matter to their college football playoff hopes, but did not matter to their ACC championship bid. So I think that Tate Rodemaker will be. I mean, after rising from the dead in that second half,
Undertaker style.
I know. I think that he's going to be better this game, and I think that Florida State will have enough pieces and will have enough plays to hold on and beat Louisville. I think this. I mean, you hate that Jordan Travis went down the way he did when he did against North Alabama. You pay somebody to come hurt your best player. Hard to believe, but I think Mike Norvell has the guys behind him, which coming off a win, even if it is eking out, winning in rivalry week is so tough. It's so tough, and I think that just showed the grit of Florida State because I think there's a lot of other teams in the country that would have gone and lost that game knowing that their best player was out for the year. So I think Florida State ekes by. I think Mike Norvell and those Florida State Seminoles hold on and stay undefeated and win the ACC. And we'll see if that's enough to get them into the college football playoff.
Yeah, last note here. I mean, got to give credit to the head coaches here that, that we've got Norvell, who I would say borderline, he was on a warm seat a few years back. And it's been really cool to see him kind of reclaim that and just reclaim what it looks like to be successful there. And then even seeing some top recruits kind of use Florida State as this like way to troll college football. And we're on the receiving end of that. Just kind of cool to see them in this position, but I also got to give it to Jeff Brom, who this is his first year at Louisville and
came from Purdue.
Yeah, just has done a really good job. And yeah, man, it'd be cool to see them finish strong. So this game seems pretty straightforward. I wish I could even ask a question like, hey, is Iowa going to score more than 7 points on offense? But let's just simply do. I'm assuming that both of you guys have Michigan winning this game. Just kind of tell me the 2 sentences on just the feel of Harbaugh is going to be back. This team's more than likely going to the playoff. Anything really to take from this game? Hampton, I'll start with you.
Iowa is so anemic on offense. That Iowa-Nebraska game set football back about 150 years, back to when Harvard and Yale were the powerhouses of the sport. They're not going to be able to compete with Michigan. They don't have the dudes to compete with Michigan. Maybe close for a while because their defense is really good. But in the end, Michigan strolls in the playoff after playing basically one tough game all year in Ohio State. And then we get to hear about how they're America's team, even though they're a bunch of cheaters. So Michigan will win this game.
Graham, throwing the same question to you.
Yeah, watching that Iowa Nebraska game, it was painful. But I mean, you look at it. I mean, Iowa handed it to Nebraska to win, and then Nebraska threw the interception, and Iowa did what they always do. They kick that late field goal and make it.
They squeak it out.
They squeak it out. I think the reason why Iowa has been successful in the Big Ten is they're the most physical team that they've played. I mean, when you look at the physicality, Iowa's been so far and above every other team. I think Michigan is more physical than they are and has the dudes to make it happen. I think that. I mean, I'm sorry, Iowa. I mean, I just am. It's going to end bad, and I think Michigan is going to, they're gonna have all the special music playing with Jim Harbaugh coming back. I think that Michigan's Michigan's going to play hot, and it's going to be really, really ugly. I think it could be a 30-point game. I really do. I think Michigan really does take control, and man, I mean, just I think we'll all be glad whenever whenever Iowa and Brian Ferentz part ways. I think that's what's going to happen after this one.
They fired him.
I mean,
he's already gone.
He's gone, or is he? Okay,
He's gone.
I thought he was gone pending the end of the year. It was Anyway,
he may be, but I thought he was gone.
Yeah,
already.
I know he did not make his. He was not going to make his points quota or whatever to retain his.
Shocker.
Yeah.
I was going to mention something, man. I just lost it. Oh yeah, dude. The Big Ten needs to reorganize how they do their conferences and stuff. I mean, this
Awful.
is pitiful. It really is pitiful, considering that you've got Oregon, Washington rematching. But man, just I don't know. I think we're moving more and more towards like divisions are going to probably be done away with, which I think is probably better for the sport. I don't really know. That's to be
I think
seen.
next year with Oregon, USC, UCLA, and all of them coming in, they're restructuring, and I'm pretty sure it's no divisions.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that's the best thing. I think if you expand the playoff,
Agreed.
You don't want guys basically playing games that are, basically playoff games just to eliminate each other than to not make the playoffs. So, anyways, let's keep moving. That's my 2 cents on that. I'm tired of seeing Iowa make it to the conference championship. They're just not deserving.
You and every other college football fan.
Man, I mean, it's ridiculous. So, all right, guys, let's spend the next few minutes talking about the game of, I'll actually set up just like Gus did on whenever Ohio State was playing Michigan, saying that this was the first playoff game. This is going to be the second playoff game because I really feel like whichever team gets in is going to make the playoff. But it's an elimination game almost as well. So let's talk about Alabama, Georgia. And Hampton, I gotta let you go first. I'd hate for Graham to start talking and then you just have to hold up your finger and let you get.
I would never.
Before you move on, let me just add this in. Let me let you go first. Man, really take it however you want to, and bless our audience with the wisdom that you've gleaned as you've just soaked in the celebration of Saturday's win.
So you said that Gus said this is like the second the Ohio State Michigan game was the first playoff game. This is kind of the second. I'll do you one better. This is the national championship game. Whoever wins this game will end up winning the national championship. I am very confident in that fact. I think Georgia and I think Alabama are the two best teams in the country. And I think it is a pretty sizable gap at this point. Not like a Grand Canyon size gap, but I do think these two are clearly above everybody else. Now, I know some casuals will say, well, Alabama almost lost to a 6-6 Auburn team. If you know college football and if you know the Iron Bowl, you knew that game was going to be a fight. You knew that it was going to come down the wire. It always does in Jordan Hare. Weird voodoo, Indian burial ground type stuff happens in Jordan Hare. It is uncanny. But the last time Alabama went in there and played a normal football game, and even then it wasn't normal because Auburn turned on the sprinklers and wet the field, was 2015. So the Alabama team you saw against Auburn is not the one that you'll see this weekend. And I'll also say the Georgia team you saw against Georgia Tech is not the team that you'll see this weekend. They rested a bunch of guys. Great to have that luxury. Alabama didn't have that luxury of getting to rest guys in their rivalry game. But Ladd McConkey didn't play. Brock Bowers didn't play. Tate Ratledge didn't play. They're trying to rest them up and get them healthy for this game. And throughout the year, I think we all said earlier, especially Alabama, this does not look like a playoff team. Well, with Georgia, it took them a little bit. It took them about mid-year for them to really kind of hit their stride and where you're like, this team is the Georgia team that we've come to expect. And I think a lot of it has to do with Carson Beck is playing at a top 5, top 10 level at quarterback. Excuse me. That is why we have not had a podcast the past couple weeks right there. But he is playing at a top 5 to 10 level.
Appreciate you bringing the microphone as you did that. Right into the microphone is what it sounded like.
I did the vampire, baby. I went like that. It did not work, apparently. Should have hit the mute button.
I appreciate you staying in the zone there. You didn't get the bat out of the zone. You didn't take it away from you. You went straight. You kept it right there.
We went straight in. One track mind, baby. Let's stay focused on the prize. But Carson Beck, top 5, top 10 level at quarterback. He's been highly efficient. Their offense is top 20 in scoring about 39 points a game. Their defense, while I don't believe it's at the level of the past 2 years, it's still a really good unit. They still got dudes on that side of the ball with, like Tyke Smith, Javon Bullard, Malachi Starks. They've got Stackhouse in their interior defensive line. They've got a couple really good linebackers. I don't know if Dumas Johnson will be back for them, but C.J. Allen has stepped in and played really well. Offensively, I know I talked about Carson Beck, but they've really started to run the ball better as of late with Kendall Milton. That offensive line is really gelled with Amarius Mims kind of coming back into the lineup. And then they've got weapons everywhere. I've already mentioned a couple of them, but they've got other dudes that Carson Beck can distribute the ball to. And I think this game is really interesting because I don't think Georgia has been tested from an offensive perspective like they're going to be tested when facing Alabama's defense, because I think Mizzou is maybe the best defense they've faced all year. And Graham, you and I are the co-leaders of the Eli Drinkwitz Missouri bandwagon, and neither one of us would say they have an elite defense. They have a really solid to good defense, but it is not elite or anywhere close to that. And Georgia had some trouble with them, mainly because they were able to get pressure on Carson Beck. And I know the next week when they played Ole Miss, they were able to do whatever they want. Well, Ole Miss's defense isn't very good. And in that game in particular, that was like the Pete Golding special of the one or two games a year where it looks like there was no game plan in place. And I think Alabama has much better personnel across the board. I think they are going to be able to pressure Carson Beck, which, like any quarterback, when the quarterback gets pressured, it throws them off. It throws them off. It throws off the timing of the offense. It leads you to playing behind the chains. And I think that's kind of the key to the game for Alabama on defense. Can you heat up Carson Beck? Can you get him out of a rhythm? Because he is a very rhythmic, efficient, accurate passer. And in a lot of games this year, he's just been able to stand back there, eat a couple hot dogs, make a PB&J, and then deliver the ball. Can't do that if you're Alabama. And I think with Dallas Turner, Chris Braswell, Justin Aboybe, who's been an absolute menace this year, I think that they're going to be able to pressure them. And I think that's going to be a real key in this game. When the Alabama offense is matching up with the Georgia defense, I think Mizzou, again, showed Alabama a little bit of a game plan of what you can do and how you can exploit this defense. And I think Ole Miss did to an extent, and I think they would have had more success in that game if they had not had two offensive line injuries in the first drive. Because a team like Ole Miss does not have a lot of depth, and when you get injuries along the offensive line, and they had just settled in to that starting five that they were really comfortable with, that threw it in complete disarray, and then Georgia was able to attack and really limit their running game and kind of get them out of what they wanted to do. So Mizzou attacked Georgia on the edges with outside runs, which I think Alabama will do. They had success in the QB run game and also in QB scramble with Brady Cook. Well, I think Brady Cook's a great quarterback, but I think Jalen Milroe is arguably, well, I think he is better, but there's no doubt he's better with his legs when he chooses to use them, which, again, sometimes can be a big if he chooses to use them. But I think his legs and the QB run game are kind of the key to the game for Alabama. They've really got to be able to run the ball pretty consistently, I think, to kind of be efficient and stay ahead of the chains. I think Milroe will have success against this Georgia secondary as well. I mean, one of the under-talked storylines of the year is the Alabama receivers and the level of play that they have put forth this year. I mean, Isaiah Bond, Jermaine Burton, Kobe Prentice. There are a couple other guys that have stepped up week in, week out. Kendrick Law is a new fun weapon that Tommy Reese has been employing week in and week out, kind of in a Deebo Samuel type role. So I'm really interested to see what wrinkles Tommy comes up with to attack the defense from the edges. And then, Jason McClellan may or may not play in this game. He was seen on crutches after the Iron Bowl. If he can't go, Savoy Dell, Jam, and Justice Show. So it's good to have depth at that position because I think all three of those guys can be effective in this game. Ultimately, I think Alabama wins this game. I think Jalen Milroe and his legs are the difference. I think Alabama has been battle tested this year. They've had some wars. They've had a lot of adversity that they've had to overcome. Georgia hasn't as much. Now, I know they've had injuries, but as far as opponents, I know that last 3-game stretch was somewhat difficult, but I just think Alabama's more battle tested. I think they match up pretty well with Georgia. I think the offensive line for Alabama has improved immensely, where they're no longer a liability. They're an asset. And I think just in the end, Jalen Milroe, his legs are the difference in this game. The defense heats up Carson Beck enough, gets enough stops, and Alabama wins the SEC championship and marches into the college football playoff.
And the only thing I'll add real quick is that I hope that someone was, as I always say, maybe listening to this podcast when they were in the shower and then all of a sudden hear just that loud cough. I think it's a gunshot or something like that. Just no idea where that came from. It was probably just a normal cough. It sounded really loud on my end, but great take. I hate to
It's
even,
amplified.
I hate to even cover it up. You got
Yeah,
one more thing you want to add on?
One more thing. I did want to mention I'm very confident in Alabama's secondary and their ability to match up with all the weapons that Georgia has. I think that's going to be very compelling to watch throughout the game, especially as Alabama kind of shifts into their different nickel and dime packages and the health of Jalen Key and Deontay Lawson. But the thing I wanted to add, 2021, Alabama ekes out the Iron Bowl, and all I hear the whole week, Alabama didn't have a shot versus Georgia. This year, Alabama ekes out the Iron Bowl. And I've heard it all. We've heard it all year, guys. But especially this week. Georgia's going to boat race Alabama. I don't even know why Alabama should show up and play the game at this point if everybody knows that Georgia is going to win. And I'm telling you right now, Nick Saban doesn't get to play the underdog card often. But when he does, it is very, very effective. This team is going to play with a chip on its shoulder, and they're going to prove, and Saban's going to prove, I'm still the king, brother. I made you Kirby. I'm still the king. You've only beat me one time, and they're going to go into Atlanta. They're going to get the job done. Let's go. Let's tee it off right now. I'm ready.
Hey, well, man, what a podcast. I mean, there really is. You're watching this after we've recapped, but man, I was sitting here thinking, honest, a little bit of a sentimental moment. Not really where you're just talking right then, but just during this podcast, it's kind of like when you go to a baseball game and it goes into extra innings, and people always go, "Oh, wait, we got free baseball." We really do have like just this gift that not a lot of teams around the country have. And if
Yeah.
you had a really good season, you still might not be playing this weekend. And just what a gift to watch. I think Alabama take the field one more time. But like you said, I mean, this runs deep. This is how I'll end the podcast, is that at the beginning of probably each, I'd say season, but more year, like when this season wraps up, Alabama and all the other teams in the country are going to put up on a wall. They're going to say, what are our goals for this season? So when you're hitting that next rep and you don't feel like you can do it, remember what your goals are. Remember what it takes to get there. And this is the anxiously expected just time that you've been waiting for. This goal that you've put on the board that you're ready to take a hold of. And so for Crimson Tide, and I mean all these teams, but really as an Alabama fan, I mean, I look forward to, and I know these players are looking at that bullet point knowing that it comes down to this weekend. And how I'll just simply say it, because you guys have said it well, is just when I think about this matchup, I think that the matchup itself lends well to Alabama in the sense of we played an Auburn team that I said a couple of days ago that was pretty much like playing a hurry up triple option, which no one really runs anymore. I mean, they weren't passing the ball, kind of hard to prep for. Good job on their part of kind of picking the two offenses that are offensive philosophies that Alabama doesn't really match up well against and trying to put those in a combination. So credit to them. But I think just Alabama and Georgia are built similar, which leans.
They're mirrors of each other.
Yeah, it leans towards Alabama, and that's going to be favorable for them. But then second of all, I think if all things then are created equal in a sense, then who's the more athletic, can make a play happen quarterback? And I'm hoping that last week we got all of our kind of errors and penalties out, and that we see Alabama play their most complete game yet against a great opponent. So, man, going to be an awesome weekend, a little bit of free football Saturday, if you will. So sit back, enjoy it, and until next time, you can chew on that. We'll see y'all soon.